Welcome to Toffee TV. It is the final words. Everton 1, Watford 0. I'm joined by Andy, the Piv.
Let's just change your name to that now.
Let's change your name to the Piv. I mean, it makes it a lot easier. None of this L stuff.
Yeah, well, that's just Spanish, innit? But whatever.
We don't live in Spain.
I don't speak Spanish.
No, I definitely don't speak Spanish. So 3 points for Everton. It's just nice to get that 3 points early in the season. That's
the main takeaway. We got 3 points. 4 points from 6. It's all positive on that front. You know what I mean? I know people obviously expect us to win 6 out of 6, but it's you need to as long as we're not losing games, we're picking up points as we develop, as we get better, as we get into the season, as we get more up to speed, and obviously players bet in. It's all the better for us, isn't it? Not dropping points.
Yeah, you just it doesn't. We'll talk obviously about the game in detail. Well, we'll try and talk about it in detail. But this time of year, it is all about getting those points on the board. Yeah. I've watched a few games, highlights and whatever from the last couple of weeks. Most of the games aren't very, very good.
No,
they're not even good. Some of them, they are what they are. They're two teams that have literally come back off pre-season, bedding in some new players, other players getting back up to speed, players coming back at different times, and it is what it is. And if you can play and win a game and keep a clean sheet and don't look massively troubled, then you're going the right way as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's, as you say, you're basically bedding yourself in while also picking up points. So, so obviously if there would be that built-in excuse, if players come back late, they haven't had time to get them, we're picking up points. So we're sort of building form as well as building fitness at the same time. And obviously they're going to meet in the middle eventually. And obviously we'll be a decent side, then hopefully the top 6 side.
And it's good. I mean, it's good to have some things, obviously, like the defence that are working straight away. But as you said, not everything will click at once, and that I think it's worse when you have things like a couple of years ago when we had Lukaku.
Yeah.
When was that? Was that 3-2? Koeman's first season. Yeah. The years have just
he smashed loads of goals in.
Yeah, he scored loads of goals early on.
Season, yeah.
And it hit a lot of issues that we never corrected, and therefore Koeman almost lived on Lukaku's goals then. Even though we won like one game in 10 after that initial period.
Didn't win any away, did we, in the second half of the season?
That's the general theme for the last few seasons. But I think it's good that at this stage of this season you're building and building and building, and hopefully it comes to a point where, like you've just said, it all clicks. Let's just talk about the team a moment. Gomes obviously started, which I suppose it wasn't a massive surprise once Delph had been confirmed that he wasn't playing. When you looked at the options, Tom Davies and Gabaman starting a game where you're going to come under a lot of aerial pressure. Watford are a big side, and they showed in this game that when they have to get back into a game, they're going to do it in one way, and that is basically bypassing the midfield. So it was no real surprise to me that Gomes started the game once Delph had been confirmed as being out, even though Delph doesn't have a lot of obviously physical stature to the team. He has got that experience and that wiliness, but it just shows even early on in the season you've got to make the right decisions to get you through games.
Well, it's not an issue really. I'd say this is what happens in the Premier League now. Managers look at games, and Tom Davies probably could have started the game, but as Marco Silva's manager this early in the season, does he want to possibly go into a game with a half-speed Gabaman who's not used to the league, and Tom Davies who's still developing, learning the ropes? Managers don't like to do that. That's why when you see a lot of the time that managers don't play younger players, because they want that experience. You can get the foot on the ball, are cool under pressure, and don't make mistakes. And that's partly why I think Gomes played. He was probably about 80% fit. He wasn't his best, but he certainly had a good game all the same. But yeah, I feel for Tom Davies because he probably needs to play, and he is a good young player. It's just that we're at the stage we can't afford him to play.
It's funny you say that, because I've been watching the new Leeds documentary, and also you had Sheffield United win over the weekend, and the similarities with those two teams are quite interesting. The amount of players that they've got in their squad, and Leeds have got an ex-Everton player, and John Lumsden scored Sheffield United's first goal yesterday, and it's so interesting how those two players have gone right down and then come back right back up again. Their class is shown. Lundstrom's actually scored in every division now for Sheffield United, and it is that interesting debate, isn't it, whether you let players go to learn their trade and work their way up. Now, listen, don't get me wrong, for every John Lundstrom, there's another probably 10, 20 players who go and I don't know, fall out of love with football or can't cope with the rigours or just don't have the quality in those teams. But it's that interesting dilemma with Tom Davies, is that what you do with him. He's supposed to be learning, but he's not playing, and he's being overlooked. And for me, it purely comes down to his size, I think. Like you just said, this is a game where he could have played. I remember last season when we played Crystal Palace, it was the first game Gomes came in for.
Yes.
And from the outside, you think, this will be Tom's chance. He played a lot of games, he'd been captain. But no, the manager looked at the physical sides of Crystal Palace and thought, Gomes is available, I'm throwing him in. Yeah. And it really helped. And it really helped on Saturday. You know, the difference with the size and having Gomes' size. So I feel for Tom Davies, and this is a big season for him in terms of, I can't even sit here and say in terms of game time, because I don't know how much game time he's got. Maybe just in terms of somebody, whether it be him or someone at the club, making a decision on how his career is going to go. Now, listen, he's never going to drop down to the lower levels, but that's going to be an interesting one, isn't it, coming up during the season?
The way I see it is there's different ways to develop players, and as you said, it is sometimes good to let those players go down the divisions, work their way up. The problem with Tom Davies is, people go, well, look at Phil Foden, he's staying around the first team. Phil Foden's 18. So when Tom Davies was 18, 19, it was okay that he was on the bench or in the stands learning every week at the first team. But there comes to a point in your development where it starts to stall because you're not playing enough games. And it's coming to that point now where Tom Davies might never get any better than he is because he's not playing enough games. And he needs to be playing against pros where he learns from his mistakes. It's great playing against all good pros and training, but in a match situation when the pressure's on, it's completely different. And I think when we come to the end of the season, you get the manager and Marcel Brands going to have to make a decision whether it's best to let him go with a buyback. That'd be the smartest thing for me, because he could still turn out to be a really good midfielder. He goes to let him to a top championship. I wouldn't let him go to another Premier League club.
Would you not? See, I don't like players going to the championship. I don't think it adds anything to them.
Really?
I honestly, I mean, you have a different version of me, because I look at football very just like a fan. You look at it from a different point of view, but I look at the championship and I just think, what can you learn from the championship? If you want to be a Premier League player, you've either got to be playing in the Premier League or some kind of equivalent. So Germany's obviously the big on vogue one at the moment. See, I'd have no problem in saying to Tom Davies, go and play in Germany for 2 years and then come back when you're 24.
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah.
German clubs regularly have 2-year loans, 3-year loans from
other.
So I'd have no problem with Tom Davies going to Germany, literally. And do you know what I think? As a human being, Tom would love that kind of thing. I'm sure there's a lot of lovely art houses in Germany.
Skateboarding,
a lot of skateboarding, a lot of graffiti you could go and look at. But
it's a culture shock, and that's what they go for. That's what Kenny played on the weekend, didn't he, for Schalke? And I think he'll benefit when he plays for Everton again or not. He'll benefit from going. I think the reason I like the Championship, and maybe Tom Davies is probably a bit too old now to go to the Championship, and he has played too many games in the Premier League or something. Maybe step back. I didn't think of that, but I look at Mason Mount, who scored for Chelsea at the weekend, and his pathway was go to Vitesse like they all do at Chelsea. Then he went to the Championship. Now he's in the Premier League. That's a good step up. You go from a technical league like the Dutch, where it's not physical, you learn there. You go to a physical league like the Championship, and then you step up to the Premiership. You get a well-rounded development. But I think Tom, as you're probably right saying, if he goes down to the Championship, it's going to be affecting mentally, because it's a step down for him. So going to Germany, going to France, where it's a bit more physical, that might benefit him more.
We'll have to wait and see. But obviously he wasn't part of it at the weekend. We took the lead quite early. This man Bernard, doing what we've all been asking him to do, really, isn't it? Dean played a lovely ball out to him. We controlled the game really well early on, I thought, with the passing. But it was that break, fantastic ball by Dean, got him free, and it was a change to see him do that. Really nice to see him have a little bit composure and then hit the target, because he's very rarely done that for us.
Well, you looked at when he got the ball and he drifted in, you thought he's going to look to pass it probably, because that's why I thought he was good, but there was no one really with him. And then really smartly, instead of going across the keeper to the opposite corner, which you thought he was going to do, he went for the inside corner. Wrong foot to the keeper, obviously took a bit of deflection. But that's how he scored a goal. Yeah, and I know people are saying, he's got no end prod and what have you not, but it's just we've just got to see it. I think we'll see what Bernard's level is this season in terms of end product. Last season was getting used to a new league, didn't have any pre-season. So wherever this season is the real Bernard, I think. So if he score, I don't expect him to score 10 goals. He's never going to be that type of player. If he can chip in with 6 goals, 6 assists, lots of chances created, creating space for Dean, which he's fantastic at, that he's going to be a good player for us. So yeah, but it was a good finish. I really loved the ball from Dean. It was a fantastic ball. So yeah, I'd like to see him do that more often. Like in the second half, he had a bit of a chance, didn't he, where he dribbled through 3 players and he was expecting to hit it and then he fell over. That's not what we would have expected to happen last season. But
I think the fact that he did take it really early as well.
Yeah.
There was no. I think at times the one in the second half, I think that's what we've seen more from him, where he's trying to take more people on. Whereas really, just get out your feet. Give the, and I think this goes for the whole team as well. Sometimes you have a shot, it only has to take a little deflection and he can go in, and that was a very minor deflection. I don't know what
the keeper was still wrong-footed when he hit the shot. He was going the opposite way.
Exactly. Yeah. So that made the whole difference to it. Whereas if you're waiting, like a lot of our players seem to do, you're giving up the chance. The good players will get back. The strong, the fast, they'll get back. They don't have to be amazing footballers as long as they get bodies in the way. Yeah. And ultimately it went in, and ultimately it was the winning goal. And as I said, we want to see more and more of that.
I think scoring early in the season takes a bit of the pressure off him as well, because obviously if we're getting to November, December, he's starting to score, then all the people start be saying he's not no end product, but he's got to get a goal early. I think he'll have his confidence up. I think we'll expect to see good things from this.
Let's have a look at some of Bernard's numbers from the game. There we go. Touches 46, obviously goals 1, shots 2 and scored 1. That's not bad. And obviously shots on target 1. So 46 touches, is that enough?
That's enough. To be honest with you, probably not enough for him, but because the whole attack really didn't have enough touches for some reason. We'll probably get onto it in a bit. But yeah, he needs to be a bit higher than that. But the number of passes they were releasing the players, when I don't think Richarlison only attempted 15 passes. I think Sigurdsson only attempted 13. He only attempted 16 or 17. Needs to be higher than that for all of them, really.
Let's see some more. There we go. Successful passes 13. 7 in the final third passes, created 2 chances, pass accuracy 62%. That seems massively low.
That's a lot of the play. That was the problem of going forward. It wasn't too fluid, but if we won 1-0, you forgive him.
Successful dribbles.
That's
5.
key. That's key, because obviously if people are sitting, Watford are quite a big defence, aren't they? So you know what I mean. They don't like to. They're not going man for man. They like to quite close the space, and obviously people who are good at dribbling create mismatches, and that's what we need. And Luka Dean benefits as well from that.
Yeah, pass accuracy all day seemed to be a problem for a lot of our players, because as the game went on, certainly, once we got that goal, the midfield just sort of
collapsed.
It did collapse, didn't it? Like the last 15-20 minutes of the first half, I just thought we just completely went missing.
I suppose with a half, Gomes not being fit and Gbaman's still getting used to the pace, you're going against 2 athletes in Capoue and in Corey. It's still, they weren't the best. Capoue was pretty good, but that's a tough ask to go 45 minutes toe to toe with them, and that's where it fell down for us, I think, in the midfield, and why Watford got back into the game as more as the game went on.
Yeah, I just thought they started to just not bullies, but they just started to get. They got a foot once they got that foothold in the game. They started to turn the ball over more and more. And it was difficult in there with, obviously Gomes, who wasn't 100% fit, and Gbaman, who's still learning the trade. How did you think Gbaman played?
It was better than the first game. I think he's still learning. I think you see the positive signs. He passes the ball forward. He'll start winning the ball back more as games go on. And physical presence, I'll be pushing people around. I think he's a good player. I think him and Gomes will need to learn how to trust each other.
Deal.
Gomes will need to learn how to and understand the position. I'd like Gomes to take a couple 10-15 yards further forward at times, just to offer that passing through the middle. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good fruitful partnership for us, and obviously Delph's around as well for different games.
Yeah,
as well.
I thought Gomes had an excellent game. He wasn't 100% fit, but just this composure and to understand where he had to make up that difference. because he'll have been there before. He knows the pressure of going to sign up for a big club. He spoke many times how he struggled at Barcelona. But I just thought there's so many times in the game where he just made sure that he did the simple thing, or he got in there first, where maybe last season that wouldn't have been a big part of his game, because he knew he had Garner around him, and he knew that he didn't have to do those jobs. But I thought on Saturday you could see him trying to just take up the slack a little bit more, even though it was clear that he wasn't 100% fit.
That was probably his best defensive game for Everton. He won the ball back much more consistently than he normally does, obviously taking up the slack that Garner's given. And I also like the fact that with Gomes, is when other people like Bernard wasn't playing, Gylfi wasn't really involved, wasn't passing it well, Richarlison had a terrible game passing-wise. Because the ball's coming back a lot, having Andre Gomes in midfield and put his foot on the ball, just play a little ball left, little ball right, he basically takes the pressure off, keeps possession, turning, and sometimes in games when it's a bit erratic, having someone like that who can just take the pressure off and ease it, it's a real valuable asset which we've got.
That was the big problem, wasn't it? The big problem for me was certainly coming towards the end of that first half was how many players just couldn't get it and keep it. It was bouncing off Dom, it was bouncing off Gylfi Sigurdsson, Richarlison looked way short of fitness, so therefore it's bouncing off him, because I think that's what people forget. When you're not fit, that's the thing that goes first, your touch.
Yeah, it is,
always your touch. And in the Premier League, if it bounces off you, players are on you straight away.
And you can't make up them yards because they're not fit enough. They haven't got that burst to make up the yards. I always said when Wayne Rooney came back to Everton, that was what he'd struggle with, because if he made a bad touch, he couldn't recover the touch, which is what when fit players
do. And we've seen that for their one chance of the game, their big chance that Pickford saved. That come from Richarlison giving the ball away, and 10 seconds later they're nearly scoring an equaliser, and that just shows you how you've got to be on it, and how that touch and making those right decisions, because that's another really important thing. You've seen that with Richarlison, just really poor decision making because the fitness is not there, not seeing the game. I think the game just gets played at 100 miles an hour, but I think when players are fit and they trust their touch, everything slows down for them. Everything slows down for them. And I think when you're tired and your head's all up, I mean, Richarlison's head was like a boxer when you can tell they're done and their head's rolling, the gum shield's out. That's what he looked like in the second half. Whereas Gomes just strolled round the pitch.
Puts the slippers on, doesn't he?
Yeah, we've got some numbers on Gomes as well. So 48 touches. Is that enough?
It's the number of passes he makes, because the number of touches and his number of passes, it's well over. It's around the right amount. Whereas you see with Bernard, he touched the ball a lot of times, but he didn't make the passes, he didn't make the actions. Andre Gomes generally does. So that he is one of those players who, high distribution. We give the ball a lot to him because we expect them obviously to link midfield and attack, and that's what he does. He needs to do little things differently.
Successful passes 30, successful forward passes 17.
That's key. He needs to be around 20. Yes, that's good. Yeah.
Okay. Successful attacking third passes 5.
I want more than that. I'm not saying that this is not a criticism, this is analysis really. He had a good game, and when he's fully fit and he has got that mobility better around the pitch, he'll be better. But the problem is at the moment, and I think people have seen it on Twitter, is that Gylfi's playing in advance of Dom a lot of the time, and he's obviously making it pressing, but he's also playing a bit further up. What happens is you've basically got a 4-4-2 essentially. And unless someone like Andre Gomes or Gbamin, whoever you want, makes up the difference in the middle and basically becomes an option in the middle further forward, then it's just going to go out wide and become very stale and predictable. And that's why we're creating some good chances, but we're not creating enough quality chances to win 2-3-0 this moment. But he is calm and collected. That is a good point.
Any more numbers? There you go. Pass accuracy 83%.
Which is low for him, so he could just which I know that's a great number for anyone else, but for Andre Gomes, again, the game was a bit loose from recoveries. That's the key there. That's very high for Andre Gomes. He's not really that type of player.
What is that high in terms of generally?
Yeah, it's quite. It's like Garner levels isn't about 12-13, so that's quite high. Yeah, so that's quite good.
Successful dribbles 2 and successful tackles.
I'd like to see that more. When he's at Valencia, he had such a line breaking ability. He carried the ball from the middle of the pitch into sort of the final third. It collapsed the defence, and then you'd have people running off, and that's what we need him to do more.
Go on YouTube. I know. You're on YouTube. What am I saying? If you go on after this. There's a lot of videos of his time in Valencia where you see those runs, very much like the goal against Wolves last season.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Where he breaks through the lines and gets a shot off or whatever, and that was a big strength. I mean, his game's obviously changed, and he was probably playing within himself a little bit Saturday, but I thought he was excellent. What did you make of Gbamin next to him?
They're still working it out. I think Gbaman's learning what Gomes can do in terms of how each wants to play. I think Gbama will sit deeper. But it's also like, if Gomes passes on the ball and there's 15, 20 yards to run into, his game is to attack the space, and I'd like him to do that more. I think the more he gets fit, as you say, that confidence isn't there yet.
I just thought Saturday, a lot of people question, should you play him after last week? Listen, if he is the long-term replacement for Garner, these are the games where he's going to learn about the Premier League, and it's up to those other players and the likes of Gomes. And I thought that's where Gomes he took that responsibility brilliantly on his shoulders. These are the games where he gets up to speed.
Yeah.
Now, listen, a couple of years ago, we had players coming into the squad, 4 or 5 of them, all trying to do what Gbama's doing, and ultimately that's what cost us in the opening few months of the Premier League, was all those players trying to do what Gbama's doing. Gbama's doing it as one player with a team around him that not just generally is the same team from last season. So I think even though he's in a real important position, these are the games that actually you can allow him to grow into it. As long as you've got players around him doing their part, which I thought Gomes did, and obviously the back four were fantastic. We'll talk in a moment, but it will take him time. It'll take him time to get up to speed. He did show some really nice touches, and towards the end of the game, like when in like the final minutes, you could see him carrying the ball and seeing what he's got. There was just times in the game where the ball comes from him, and it comes from so fast that he wants that extra second, and you don't have it in the Premier League. No. But the only way you're going to learn that is by playing in the Premier League. Exactly.
I think the way to judge players sometimes in the Premier League is when they play against your Burnleys, your Watfords, those tougher games. There's only 12 games a season against the top 6. The rest of the most of the points are won against other teams, so you've got to be able to get used to, and playing against those physical sides, those sides that close you down quickly, is going to put you in better stead for the rest of the season. So yeah, you're right. Playing in those games, and as you say, having that core side that you all know the roles in the silver system, unlike last year where everyone was learning, it makes it much easier to bet players in.
I do think, though, saying that, I think Gylfi Sigurdsson maybe just needs to do a little bit more in helping him out, because, like you mentioned before, there was times in the second half Gylfi Sigurdsson was playing in a 4-4-2 as another striker. Now, I don't know whether that was just because the manager looked at the game and looked at what we had on the pitch and thought it would be better just creating that shape. But for me, there's times when he needs us to just drop in and give that extra body in the midfield to help it out, to get hold of that ball, not so high up the pitch. So it gives you a platform to play off.
Yeah. So with Gylfi Sigurdsson, I know people I've had debates about in the past and questions. Gylfi Sigurdsson is most effective is not right up against the centre half. It's dropping into pocket space and being allowed to shoot. He's not the quickest or most dynamic player, so he's not going to be able to beat 2 men a lot of the time. I know he has done it consistently to make shots himself. So if he is dropping off into space, he then allows himself to get shots off more. By playing up in centre halves, it's a relying on crosses or things falling to the box. I'd rather him be able to get on the ball and sort of slip someone in or do something. And he also, as I pointed out earlier, is we're going round the centre of the pitch all the time. Yeah. Him as an option to lay it off, and then Gomes comes and joins him, and then you've got Don going in around. Basically, then it narrows the defence, and then you can create more space on the outside.
I look at him at times, and I just think you're not getting on the ball because you are, like you just said, you're not in the right position. Whereas if you picked it up a little bit deeper, I imagine Gylfi Sigurdsson, and there is evidence to back this up, is probably one of the most skillful players playing in the Premier League in terms of when he's got the ball at his feet, what he can do with the ball.
Superb. It's his technical skills. There's no question about it. You see it. Just the way he takes set pieces, or even the passes he puts through. But the problem I found with Gylfi, and this is where I'm not too sure whose problem it is. I don't know if the manager's using him incorrectly, or that's just the type of player he is, where he's just doing it on his own. So I'm not too sure which is what's going on. So I can't blame him. I can't blame the manager currently. But he can be such an effective player. It's just that he doesn't get on the ball enough.
I think we criticised him on this last season, probably in the early part of the season as well, where things weren't clicking. And maybe that's just part of it, is that because it is early in the season and all those parts aren't clicking yet, he's yet to click. I've seen moments of frustration from him on Saturday. There was times when he wanted the ball to his feet and the players weren't given to him as well. So it's not always his fault. No, but I think there are... And if he's being told not to drop deeper because the manager wants a higher line, so it's a 1 and then a 3 and then a 2 at times. Yeah. It's hard to point the finger at, but I just think that if he just dropped a little bit deeper, got the ball to start the attacks, he'd get it back. You know, he'd get it back, and then once he's got it back, I just don't think he gets on the ball enough. But like you just said, I don't know who's creating
the instruction.
That issue.
Yeah, that's exactly. I can't believe, as I say, you know, at the moment, the game passes him by too much. And when he gets on the ball, he does do things, and he does get a shot off. He does make nice passes. He needs to do that more. Everton need him to do that more. And whether it's just his game, and you know, maybe Iwobi will provide us something different, I don't know. Obviously, Gylfi Sigurdsson's goals are so important to Everton at the moment, so we need him in the side, really, because until Dom or Moise Kean start hitting 15, 20 goals a season, maybe not Dom, but until that happens, we need him in the side, so we need him to be used the best way he can be used. And whether Silva goes, this is not exactly how I want to play, but I'll just use him for now until we get to that stage where we can play that way. I think we need to try and get the best out of our players, and I think Gylfi needs to be just tweaked slightly.
Yeah, listen, it's always the same criticisms of Gylfi Sigurdsson, always. And I think, you know, there's people on Twitter that'll tell you exactly what he can do, because they like telling you.
There's some people who make statistics up that make no sense either, but
I don't need to tell people that I'm a fan of Gylfi Sigurdsson, but I think there are times, and it's harder. I've seen this with a lot of players in the past. It's harder for a player like him. He doesn't go and get into the game. He's almost got to be brought into the game, and that must be difficult and frustrating as a player, knowing what you can do with the ball. But we, like you said, we play so much wide football.
It's so predictable, though.
That's the thing, though. So at times, it's his fault if we've got full-backs who like to get forward, and we've got two wingers who like to run at players with the ball. Yeah. So at times, it's a Gylfi Sigurdsson's fault.
No, but if he took up positions and basically put himself in space, he'd basically be forced to pass to him more, because he'd be the man in space, the man who's going to do something. I think with Gomes is such a good passer. The ball, he should be able to find Gylfi all the time. He's got the ability to beat two men with the pass, bend it around the pass.
The manager inherited Gylfi Sigurdsson.
Yeah.
Do you think that in a perfect world, in an ideal world, does Gylfi Sigurdsson suit the style the manager wants to play?
Yes and no. He does in the sense he works hard. He does in the sense that he can score goals from midfield, attacking midfield, whatever. The issue comes, he's probably not dynamic enough for Marco Silva wants three players in midfield who sit deeper. So you probably have one, Gomes as your six, then you have two, Gomes, Delph, Gylfi, Iwobi in front of them too. And I think he wants players who can basically beat a man and basically break teams down. Well, that's why we signed a lot of dribblers if you look at it. But he wants people to be able to break teams down. And I think Gylfi needs to play closest to the goal to be the most effective. I know he plays a bit deeper for Iceland, but I always like him closer to goal, because you basically got someone who's got a rangefinder with a right foot who can score from anywhere, which is what you want. But if you're playing him deeper, what does he offer if he's not on the ball enough? And that's, I don't think Marco Silva would have picked him in his ideal 11 if he didn't inherit him. I think he likes him, of course he does, because he works hard for the team. I just think he doesn't suit particularly the Marco Silva brand of system. But he's making the best. He scored 13 goals and got 6 assists last season. That's nothing to sniff. And I know I've had I feel he's my favourite player, but I think he's at this moment, at least for another 18 months, he's quite imperative to Everton, really.
I'm sure once the sharpness kicks in for a lot of players, he'll be all right.
We'll work it out, yeah, we will.
We saw in the first half the first use of VAR in the Premier League for Everton this season at Goodison Park, and obviously there's one last week on the Bernard. But I must admit, when Mina went in on Delafeu, I must admit, I thought it was a penalty at the time. I'm in the Gladys seat, I'm looking across the goal, and it just looked like a clumsy challenge. I think
because it's Mina as well, you expect it to be sometimes a bit clumsy, yeah.
To be fair, I'd been waxing lyrical about Mina up to that point and saying how good he was, and I give him my man of the match. I thought he was
fantastic, yeah.
But I'm not saying it was the way Gerard Delafeu went down. It was just the way it was just the way it played out. You expect penalties to be given. Now, the referee didn't give the penalty, give a corner.
He was in the perfect position, really.
Then he went to the VAR, because the VAR wanted to check it. And then I'm thinking, well, the VAR is definitely going to check. They're the ones you get away with when there's not VAR. The referee doesn't see it, and you go back and go, got away with one there. But they checked it, and he never give it.
I think, yeah, I mean, and by Mina's reaction straight away, you knew he hadn't touched him because he was absolutely livid. And I know sometimes players do that when they have touched people, but you could just see, you know, and I like that from Yerry Mina. He seems to be a bit of a leader. I know he's not the most orthodox of leaders, but he seems to respect them. He's a big presence in the team. And realistically, he took over from Michael Kean. He's the one who's giving instructions out to Michael Kean and stuff like that. And you think Michael Kean being in the team for 2 years, he'd be the one speaking to people. So he's sort of become the senior defender.
We'll come back onto defence in a moment, but in terms of it, listen, a lot of criticism over VAR over the weekend.
It's actually not VAR, it's the handball, as we discussed earlier.
If you're on Patreon, we'll be discussing that on the Premier League show during the week. But a lot of criticism of it. But I thought in that moment, that's where VAR worked perfectly.
Exactly.
Because if the referee had given the penalty and it was checked, and then has to give a corner, I think a lot more people. And I actually thought it was great that the referee had given it back the referee up, and it gives you that. Then you go, well, actually, it does work perfectly because referee didn't give a corner, and he was backed up by VAR, and that means that you have a bit more faith in the ref and you have faith in the system, which is all what we want, really. Because when we're talking about VAR, it's the people who don't want VAR to work who are the first people to go mad about that situation with Man City. And you're absolutely right. That's nothing to do with VAR. That is a new law. That is absolutely god-awful law. It's an absolute god-awful law in terms like that. So I thought it worked absolutely perfect.
I think in every case, if you're checking for penalties, VAR is perfect because it's when it comes to checking goals and chalking goals off where it's what's the issue is. Offsides, I've got no problem with because that's the offside rule I've got problems with. But checking goals for offsides, I've got no problem with that either. It's the laws that have been added now that go along with VAR. That's the issue.
The problem, isn't it?
It is. It's not the VAR because you basically go, oh, did I have his hands on the way through? Oh, was he a paper thin slice offside? And you don't want to be thinking that. You just want to enjoy the goals. And I think VAR for penalties is basically you're going to get correct decisions all the time now.
They should have, without talking too much about it, but they should have give us VAR and then change the rules a year later
on the back of what they found out from VAR.
Exactly.
Yes,
they've got these two things and put them together, and it's just funny when you're listening to ex-professionals or current professionals talking about the rules and not knowing anything about them. And then you're expecting normal punters who go the game to know all about these laws and think that, that must be something to do with VAR. And listen, technically, people are right. Because some goals wouldn't be chalked off if VAR wasn't there to check them. But VAR is there to check them. But it's too much too quick for me. They should have. You've got to football and football fans. We're like we know what we like. You know, we're
stuck in our ways. We are.
And it takes a lot for you. So you've got to change one thing at a time and let us get used to that.
Yeah. Before
you go, they've changed like half a dozen rules and brought VAR in to back them all up. Whereas, you know, like, think about it in other years, right? They bring in a new law. So when there's a corner, it's tugging and all that, right? When it first happens, they're all over it. Yeah. All over it. And then you find that middle ground where it works for everybody. And then you know where you are there. With this, there's no back off. Because with the VAR situation, it will always be black and white now. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people are struggling with it now because they're thinking this is never going to change. But saying all that, I thought it worked perfectly because there was no real hold up to the game.
No.
The referee, and this was the thing me and Baz used to always talk about. That showed why a referee should never, ever, 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 ever have to go over to a screen.
No, because he made the right decision anyway, but he just trusted them. Yeah. He doesn't. I suppose, I don't know, maybe when they do go over to the screen sometimes, if it's a massive decision, they want to be 100% right, because it's their job on the line, essentially. But yeah, I think that was a perfect example of how VAR works. Man City game, not so, but yeah, okay.
So we got through that one, and we went in at half-time winning, and second half, I mean, the one, Pickford made an absolutely fantastic save.
His face,
whether it's his face or not, he's made his body.
He's made the goal smaller, which is exactly what you do as a goal. I think I've been critical of Jordan Pickford in the past, inconsistent decision making and position sometimes. I think we're now going to get to see the best of Jordan Pickford this season, and he is going to escalate himself into that top 5 of goalkeepers. I know people go, he already is. For me, he's just a little bit outside, but he is now going to be into it.
I think that showed perfectly why he's one of the top goalkeepers, because he hadn't had a tap all day to do, and when he had that one big moment one-on-one, like he did last week at Palace, he made the save.
As long as he can cut those mistakes out, he definitely will be. It's just, and I think he will. I think the goalkeeping coach, I think his name's Hugo Sousa, I can't remember his name, but he's worked with some of the best big Benfica goalies they brought, and they've had some good goalies over the years. And he's made all them better. I think he's only going to make Pickford better, and I think that we're seeing the fruits of that.
The clean sheet stats back that up.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And obviously the defence is a big part of that. And I thought, listen, we've all been worried, and there's no reason why. I'm not saying why we shouldn't be. We're still a player down in terms of the squad.
Yeah.
And that's still valid. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Players can get suspended and get injured. We've already seen instances of that in the first 2 games. But Kean and Mina have started the season really, really well. Really, that straight from the off, not too much to panic over, doing the job perfectly. And I thought in this game, Mina and Kean. Listen, Kean is. We talked about Zuma last season, and now we're talking about Mina. Well, there's one constant there, Michael Kean.
Yeah.
So straight away, he's doing his job. He had one little nervy moment in the first half, but don't want to labour on that too much. But it's an interesting point that you just made about Yerry Mina taking over as a leader, and maybe Michael Kean taking a back seat to that. I think that suits Kean.
It probably does. I don't think even at Burnley, when you had Ben Mee, and Ben Mee was sort of the lead, I think he's the second centre half in a sense, and obviously, and I think don't mind that, because of Yerry Mina is the one he takes the lead for Colombia as well. Sanchez is the one who plays next to him. That sort of helps Michael Kean, because I think last season at times Kean did it, sometimes Zuma did. There wasn't really an ascendancy, and you always seem to have one centre half, John Terry for example, who were basically telling you where to be, and Mina's become that player. I think the biggest credit, and I'd just like to point out that Marco Silva has done a tremendous job with Michael Kean. Taken from a bit, the Sam Allardyce, Ronald Koeman year, let's be honest, he was an absolute disaster. And he had a couple of injuries and what have you not. And he basically came from a system, the low block system, where he basically had to defend the penalty box, to making him this defender who's actually rock solid in a high line. That's a lot of work that's been done there, and it's credit to the player, it's credit to Marco Silva, and I think it's a good thing. Yerry Mina, I've always said, is at the most potential out of him and Keane. I always thought he's going to be the better defender. He just needed games, because he's not played more than 70 games at what I would say top level leagues around the world. So he's still, even at 24, he's still developing. So I think it's credit to Marco Silva, and I think the players are starting to step into how good they can be.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a criticism. Keane wanting to. I'm not saying he's.
Not wrong.
I think he's come on as a leader massively, as a quiet leader in the last year. I really do. I just don't think he needs to be the authority on the pitch.
No, he doesn't.
And I think you've seen the other side of him now. He's hitting like raking 60-yard passes.
Really good pass
from one side to the other. His passing's brilliant. And I think we've seen early on in this game, they had a corner from the corner of the Gladys seat and the Bullens, curled in. And I think they already had one, which was a little bit one of them where the goalie didn't know where to come or to go. And Mina just threw himself off the ball and headed it back out. And it was little moments like that he like you just said, he took charge. If you watch the Chelsea game yesterday and see them, Zuma gets caught for the corner. He's in front, and it's not saying it's his fault, but they're playing zonal, and he's flat. Yeah. It reminded me of the goal against City, where he's flat in his position, and the lad comes from behind him and scores. Whereas Mina just took the author. There was a ball to be won, and he won it.
Because usually last season, every ball that's been won was usually won by Michael Keane, wasn't he? He'd go meet the ball. But this season, it seems to be Mina first, then Keane, which I suppose allows Keane to do what he does best, which is blocking shots, cutting down angles. And I suppose that what I would say is a little, so as asterisk, as we played Troy Deeney and Christian Benteke, they're not the defenders that are going to give Yerry Mina and this tackle. Sorry, they're going to give Yerry Mina and Michael Keane. But still, they still deserve praise. Everton's defence has been superb in 2019. But both of them been apart. I know people, it was mainly Zuma and Keane last season. But Mina and Keane did well against Chelsea last season. I think 2 games we got clean sheets with them 2 in the side. So it's a positive.
Well, you're absolutely right. When you come up against the Agueros and against the the Salahs of the world, people with quick feet.
Yeah.
Them, then we'll see.
But then we'll tweak it. We'll sit deeper. That's what I think.
But it's more the.
Yeah, I know.
I think the situation people are more worried about is that the Della Fame situation.
Yeah.
It is whether you're gonna put a foot in, because players are so quick. But what you want is Mina to have played half a dozen games, so he's fully up there. But second half, they just decided to go long ball. I think they had like 4 attackers on. They just started to go long ball with flicks from Deeney.
Just plays right into our hands, though. That's why I don't get. If you're Watford's manager, why would you try? We've got 2 6'2", well, in this case 6'5" centre half, who just loved to head the ball. So, I think they obviously did create a couple of half chances, but luckily it didn't. But I think we was well suited to deal with that. And I hope as the season goes on, we can play against different things.
I suppose the disappointing part with that was we dealt with a lot of that really well. They had a couple of chances. And there was a header that someone put from point blank that put over. So.
Dawson at the bar.
You're always going to have, and they're always going to have a chance or two. We dealt with them. I think the most annoying part is that we did have breaks that we didn't make the most of, and obviously Moise Kean came on. I think we just call him Moise Kean now, can't we?
Yeah, he said his name's Moise Kean.
Whatever he said to his name's Moise Kean. I was listening intently for the announcement when he came on to see what Graham White called him, and he called him Moise Kean. So that's it now. It's sorted. And I thought, when he first came on, I was actually a little bit worried because Dean had just gone down. So that change had to be made.
Yeah.
Holgate coming at right back and Seamus going to left back. And I'm thinking, so we've got one place to switch position, another place just come on at right back. And you're asking a raw 19-year-old to come on and try and hold the ball up. And no matter, Dom didn't have a good game.
He didn't, but he knows his role, though. And that's what we need to remember.
And that's what I was a little bit worried by was, will this kid be able to just hold the ball up? Is it the ideal situation? The first 5-10 minutes, he did. You can tell with Keane that he wants to. You can tell he wants to back into the defender, hold it, and then hopefully spin. And once he got into the game, he started winning a couple of fouls and started getting them. But it's disappointing that we just didn't make more of those breakaways. And obviously, he had one of those key breakaways. We had a couple actually, but the one where he got the shot off, I was a little bit. Listen, in 19, he's aching as David Goodison. I couldn't understand. I just wish he had loads more time maybe than he thought. He
could have took another 3 yards and then hit it. Yeah, I think I don't know, when you're 19, you you're getting that big chance to score your first goal. Yeah. I suppose I'm not we won the game, so it's not a thing I'm going to look back on and say, oh well. But I think we're keen. I think why he isn't starting. I think people need to understand it. Yes, he probably is our main goal threat out of the two. But until he understands Marco Silva as a system and understands how Marco wants him to play, he won't start. Marco Silva has a very specific system how he wants people to play. And at the moment, Keane's a little bit raw and a bit erratic in that system. So it'll take him time to get used to it, but you can see the glimpses of talent. When he gets in space, he's so quick. He can take a man on. I think what he wants to do is sort of drop off and get the ball and run at defenders.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas Marco Silva's probably saying, I want to, sometimes I'd like to be able to be a bit direct, put you in the channel and hold it up for someone, spin off, let Bernard take it off you, and then you run in behind them. But it's just, he's going to need to learn. And I think the one where it was offside and he almost scored, that was a great turn, finish. Same bit with wide, but you can see those glimpses. Just need to be a bit patient with him.
I think that was the difference, wasn't it? It's the little differences of the way he can get the ball and what he can do with it. When he was running at people, you could see probably with a bit more in his legs, he could go past them, but he didn't. He slowed it down and then come inside them effortlessly. And then the one you said that went wide, I was actually made up. He put it wide because I seen the flag up and I thought if he scores and they put that flag up, this place is going to go mental. So, but you can see just the for a 19-year-old, there was one where he picked the ball up in our half and he was holding it up and he tried to go between the two players and it was never a foul. I'm not having it was a foul, but the way he should have just jumped between them and ended up practically on the tunnel. But it was the way he used the cleverness of his physical stature, and I think that's again it's that idea. I've mentioned this before. It's something Dom doesn't do enough. Dom just seems like the nicest kid in the world to play against. He's not aggressive enough. He doesn't get angry. He's not an angry player. Whereas straight away I looked at him thinking, you've got a point to prove here. You want to fight, not fight, but you want to fight with everyone. You want that defender in your back so you can feel them, so that when you get that ball, you can spin past them like that. You want that contact. Where Dom, I don't always think feels like that. Or Dom wants to get the ball, and the first thing he wants to do is he wants to get it, control it, lay it off and go.
Yeah.
Whereas this kid looks like he wants to get it, feel the play behind him, and then spin, and then the pitch opens up.
Yeah.
And as long as you've got players left and right, then suddenly you're away.
He's a predator, isn't he? When he gets the ball, he wants to go towards goal. With Dom, I can see second guessing everything all the time. Whereas with that one which went wide, which was offside, he just turned straight away, got a turn shot. Dom would touch it, he'd take him a couple of seconds. It's not natural for Dom for some reason.
That's a whole criticism with a lot of our players.
Yeah,
though.
it is, yeah.
And it's maybe not with Richarlison, that's why Richarlison's different. It's that idea of every player in our team gets a chance and hesitates, and by the time the hesitation's gone, the chance is gone. And that's why I was so happy that Bernard took his goal early, because he's always been like that. For the season we've had him, and I know that comes down to fitness and it comes down to just being up to speed with everything, but that's the difference with the Premier League. A lot of those top players, they just get it and do what they need to do.
Yeah, I always remember Toffee saying he never let the goalies set themselves, so even if the shot wasn't really on, he'd hit it between two players early because he'd have a better chance of scoring. I think some of our players do hold it too long, like Bernard always looks to pass first when he should probably shoot sometimes, and I think hopefully we'll get a more ruthless streak. I would like to say about Richarlison this season, first game I thought he played quite well actually, and then the second game, yes, it wasn't obviously against Watford, wasn't that good. The thing with me is he's better when he's in the box, and I don't know whether we need to get him close to the goal, whether we play two up top and have maybe a slightly different system, whatever. But most of his chances this season, except the one where he curled it past the post with his left foot, have been off set pieces because he's in the box already. So finding getting him away to be close to the goal will benefit more. Obviously, the first one, I think that was a bit harder of a chance. I know people thought he should have buried it. It was a bit further out. The second one he should have buried.
The second one was...
But the first one, I've seen people miss them a lot, where it comes over to you, free header, 8, 9, 10 yards out, and you hit it over the bar. Fair enough. But the second one, he just had to nod it in, really. But we can't. We won.
We got the 3 points.
We won, exactly. There's no negativity. It's just tweaks, just little things that need to change, and we'll be better as we go on. And I think it'll happen anyway.
Oh, we go to Villa Friday night with a lot of positivity. And
they're going to be an open side. We should have some joy against them.
You've just got to hope that every week the established players are, just getting fitter, and the players who've just come into the team just get to know the league fast, and we'll go from there.
I hope Luca Dean's all right as well. I was worried about that.
Yeah, that's a bit of a worry. It's a hamstring problem, isn't it? I think.
Seamus actually was all right at left back. Mason Algate is not a right back though. I've said this a long time. He's fine in the Championship at right back, but in the Premier League you need to be a bit dynamic, and he's just not on the ball.
So he didn't learn anything from the Championship then.
Well, he did. He did in the sense that he probably learned that he was a centre half in the Premiership and the Championship. But I think Seamus actually. Sometimes I like people on the opposite side turning inside.
To be fair, Seamus actually is someone who did benefit from the Championship. So
he did Blackpool, yeah, and
that
was probably the first time he's played left back since that Benfica disaster. So
no, he did.
He played one game after
last season. Oh,
did he?
Man United game, wasn't it? Did he go to left back?
He makes it. Yeah,
same thing happened. He went off injured,
that's
and he went to left back.
He did. Yeah,
and he went to right back. Was it John Joe?
It might have been John Joe.
No, I think it was Kurt Zuma.
It was Kurt Zuma, right?
Yeah. So,
but 3 points, 4 out of 6. We're on the up. Again, we should be favoured to beat Villa, even though it's a away game.
Don't say it.
No.
Don't say it. And don't say what can happen if we win either.
No, forget
Just
that.
Don't.
No, forget the what happened when. It's too early in the season. 10 games. It's 10 games.
Yes. For some people, is it?
No, it's 10.
For some people.
Yeah, next door, obviously. But 10 games. It's 10 games when you look at the table.
No,
but the good thing is we should beat Villa. They're still getting. They're basically a group of strangers who get used to each other, aren't they? And you can see it. Some of the players are all right. Jack Grealish is still winless in the Premier League, isn't he? When he starts, that Bale record. But I think we should beat them. But we'll see. I don't want to tip fate.
That's another day. There you have it. Final words. Everton 1, Watford 0. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. A win's a win at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah.
A win is a win.
We've got to analyse. We've got to pick things out.
We've got to still say. What did you think? Let us know your thoughts. VAR, were you happy with that as well? And is Yerry Mina the best defender since Franz Beckenbauer? Let us know in comments. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed, please do. Click the bell for alerts so you know when a video comes out. Give this video a thumbs up. Tell YouTube that you like it. And if you want more great videos, join us on Patreon, where we go live 4 days a week. We'll be doing it later to talk more about this game. Make sure you give Andy a follow on Twitter as well.
Thank you.
So, because He knows everything.
I don't know everything.
All right, that's fair enough. He doesn't know everything, but he knows where to find out everything, though.
Google.
That's you've
killed
killed
the gimmick, haven't I?
reasons to follow Andy on Twitter. There you go. Thanks for watching. Baz is probably on the Magic Teapot ride somewhere. Know what? Knowing that bastard, he's probably in SeaWorld laughing at dolphins.
I spoke to him the other day and he was got to go and enjoy a delicious German beer in Epcot, so I was quite jealous, to be honest with you.
Hang on, Baz doesn't drink.
He said
Baz doesn't drink.
He said he was
All he ever
concentrating.
I don't drink. Yeah, I've seen you in Switzerland. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.